Hello, and welcome to We Read Allegedly, where we allegedly read books. Today, we are going to be talking about The Princess Bride, my all-time favorite book. So, be nice to me, Squid.
I'll do my best.
I know you'll try. But before we get into that, let's get into our alleged reads.
Yes. And unfortunately, we are not joined by John. So it's just ladies only episode today.
Yeah, I forgot to say he wasn't here. We're sad.
People will catch on real fast when I'm not hating on someone's choices.
Right.
What are you allegedly reading, Celeste?
I have just today started a book called Uglies.
Ooh, Danny has read that book.
It is fascinating. I am only maybe 2 hours in. It's an audiobook. Mm-hmm. And it gripped me. It went, hello, you want to listen to me. Apparently I have 390 pages left, which I didn't realize. Oh no, I have 8 hours left. I'm still figuring out the world. Mm-hmm. So apparently there are different classifications for people, and children are called younglings or little. Younglings is Star Wars. Littles, I don't know. There's something to that effect.
Littles is sororities. So.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Our church calls, the people in our church calls all kids littles.
I'm pretty sure that's a sorority thing. I was not part of a sorority, but I'm pretty sure littles is a sorority.
I have no idea. But then once they hit middle school to early teenage years, they're considered uglies. And then when they turn 16, they get a surgery that makes them perfect, and they become pretties, and their only purpose in life is to have fun. And I'm calling shenanigans.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like this feels like this is going to be some dystopian type things. I just picked it up because everyone on TikTok talks about it as one of the things that they read when they were teenagers. Now, mind you, I'm older than most of the people on Book Talk. Not most. A lot of the ones reading YA. And so I was like, well, I'll give it a shot. See what it is. It wasn't one I had to buy. So I was like, let me try this out.
I remember Danny saying she really liked it and that I might enjoy it.
I've already had some moments of, there's these two. It starts out following this one young lady, and kind of through her explains the world, but you're getting a very limited view of what's happening in the world because the book's just going about as if this is normal, and so you're picking things up. So she and her friend are about to become pretties, 2 months, and there is a program that you can see what your face might look like once you've become pretty. And she goes, oh, let me tone down your skin to be more normal. And I'm like, we have a normal skin tone? That's not okay.
I think that's why Danny said I would like it, is because it's so invested in social views of people.
Right.
How that affects people and what that looks like.
I'll let you know. I'll keep you updated.
Yes, please do.
Because I legitimately didn't want to leave work because that was where I was listening to it. And I'm like, I'm invested in this.
That was me today, reading my book at work.
I almost started listening to it at the basketball game I was at because go sports ball.
We love sports.
We love kids.
And we love children.
And support our friends' kids who play sports, even though we don't understand.
You get that sport point.
Yay, you got it into the goal. That's not their goal. Yay!
The goal basket unit.
Hoop. Net.
Yay!
Woohoo!
Welcome to We Read Allegedly, where we definitely watch sports.
So, but I determined that would be rude to pop my headphones in and...
See, the secret is, if you do like I did and accidentally cut off one of your earbuds, you can put just one earbud in, and then it's not rude.
Okay, I'm sorry. I misunderstood you and thought you said earlobes, and I was very confused. Like, I heard you say earbuds, and my brain went, earlobes.
Yeah.
What?
I have corded headphones still because I enjoy corded headphones, and I was cutting paper at work once, and one of my headphones was hanging down, and I just brought the paper cutter down and went, oops, that was my earbud.
Gotcha.
Oh, darn.
Okay.
Well, so now I have one.
Fun
a very expensive set of earbuds.
Well, Squid, what are you allegedly reading?
Okay, I'm going to have you pick 1 through 3. Just don't know which one I want to talk about. So, I'm going to have you pick one.
I'm just impressed that it's only 3 at one time. I have a lot going on.
I'm almost done with 3 more. But these are the 3 that I finished already.
Finished. Okay.
Yes. You looking for something to roll?
I was looking for something to roll, but my mimic's across the room, so.
Oh, well.
I'm going to say 2.
Wonderful. What a great book you've chosen. So that is The Creative Act by Rick Rubin, which has been probably my favorite book of the year so far, and I realize it's only January, so.
It's almost February.
It is almost February. It is one of 3 books that I've read this month. Very good. It was so good. I read it in like 4 days. It was it was a very quick read. So I started it right before the new year, finished it by the 3rd.
Now, what is it about?
So it is a nonfiction book written by Rick Rubin, who is a music person.
Okay.
I don't know. He does music things. I don't know. Whatever those things are.
Music comes out of him in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, he produces, he plays, I don't know. So the book is called The Creative Act, A Way of Being. And he basically talks about what being creative looks like as a human being.
Oh.
And it was, so from like the first chapter, I was hooked. Because it's a very, like, it's basically a short, it is a collection of like short imperatives and insights. So it's not like you're reading a long 30-page chapter about how to be creative. It's like one chapter is 3 pages about this concept. And then there's a poem. And then there's 2 pages about this. And then there's like a quote from someone else. So it's like a very quick read because it's just little pieces all put together about creation and being creative and what that looks like. And it was very good. Let me grab the book real quick because I need to find a quote from the beginning that was so good. So first of all, let me say the book, super aesthetic. This is the front of the book.
Oh,
beautiful.
I think I've seen that at Barnes & Noble.
Yes. So it also won, I want to say it won some prizes last year because I think it was published last year. It might have been a year ago. Not sure. I'm not sure if you could see on the camera. These are all the bookmarks that I have put in this book. All the little earmarks that kind of show up. So like every few pages, I was earmarking something because I was like, this is so good. I want to remember this. Let me find, because I think it is chapter 1. So I'm going to read a portion of this chapter for you because I read this and then I was like, everyone needs to read chapter 1 and then they're going to read the rest of this book. Because I have always been interested in creative pursuits. I have written, I've done, we've both done audio dramas, we've done things like that.
We're both fairly creative.
Yeah, I love creating, but I also love talking to people about creating things. And some people who do not, exist in that creative space are like, well, that doesn't pertain to me. And I think it referenced back to me art in the Bible in this. So the beginning of this says, Those who do not engage in the traditional arts might be wary of calling themselves artists. They might perceive creativity as something extraordinary or beyond their capabilities, a calling for the special few who are born with those gifts. Fortunately, this is not the case. Creativity is not a rare ability. It is not difficult to access. Creativity is a fundamental aspect of being human. It's our birthright, and it's for all of us. Creativity doesn't exclusively relate to making art. We all engage in this act on a daily basis. To create is to bring something into existence that wasn't there before. It could be a conversation, the solution to a problem, a note to a friend, the rearrangement of furniture in a room, a new route home to avoid a traffic jam. What you make doesn't have to be witnessed, recorded, sold, or encased in a glass for it to be a work of art. Though the ordinary state of being, we're already creators in the most profound way, creating our experience of reality and composing the world we perceive. In each moment, we are immersed in a field of undifferentiated matter from which our senses gather bits of information. The outside universe we perceive doesn't exist as such. Through a series of electrical and chemical reactions, we generate a reality internally. We create forests and oceans, warmth and cold. We hear words, hear voices, and form interpretations. Then, in an instant, we produce a response. All of this is in a world of our own creation. Regardless of whether or not we're formally making art, we are all living as artists. We perceive, filter, and collect data, then curate an experience for ourselves and others based on this information set. Whether we do this consciously or unconsciously, by the mere act of being alive, we are active participants in the ongoing process of creation. And I read that and went, oh, I'm going to finish this book real fast, huh?
Yeah. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it was so good. This is a book, I know it is the beginning of the year, but so far I would say it's probably going to be one of the best books I've read this year. Would recommend it to everyone. It was just such a lovely and encouraging read. Even if you don't finish it and feel like you have to create a masterpiece, it was just nice to read this and be like, whatever I do can be creation. It doesn't have to fit in a box.
Yeah.
I can have a conversation with someone and that can be creation. I can leave there with something I didn't have when I started.
Well, and it's always a fascinating thing to me that people say they're not creative, even Christians, because we were created in God's image and God is creative. Now, obviously, we're not going to go out and create people like he did. We're not going to, look at the dirt and go, whew, and person like, but we do. That is one of the aspects that we have.
Right. We cannot help but create because we are created in the image of a creator.
Tell me the name of that again.
This is The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. And it struck me especially because like Francis Schaeffer's Art in the Bible that we've talked about in the podcast.
Yes.
Being like non-believers can create something that exemplifies the creator. I don't know anything about Rick Rubin. I don't know if he is a Christian, but I read that first chapter and I went, that's a Christian message right there. We as human beings cannot help but create.
He is a man with a very impressive beard. Sorry, I was finding the book to put on my Goodreads to read list because that's where I keep my TBR. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that man has a really nice beard.
That is a beard. Wow, I just looked it up.
That's a beard.
So he is the co-founder of Def Jam Records.
Oh, produced acts such as Beastie Boys,
Run DMC.
LL Cool J, not the one from Playing Games with Strangers.
Red Hot Chili Peppers, Metallica. This man has been involved in producing music.
Okay, but still, that's fascinating.
And again, I do not know if he is religious in any way, but when you read a sentence like, whether we do this consciously or unconsciously, by the mere fact of being alive, we are active participants in the ongoing process of creation.
Yeah.
Like that is straight out of Art in the Bible right there, of being like, we are creations and therefore we must create.
Mm-hmm.
So I earmarked more in this book than I probably have. And I've only recently started earmarking books, so this is not a super big statement, but more than I have any book that I've read in the last year. And some people will read this and probably say it was too surface level because it is all pretty kind of like feely. A lot of it is like that first chapter, which is a lot like, creating is good. We should do it. But creating is good and we should do it. So,
well, and it's good for you. Being creative is good for you. It's good for your brain. It helps you physically. Like there's all kinds of stuff that they say about it. So
yes,
I think that's interesting.
So there are some pages, like I will show you a picture of this. This is all that's on this page.
Oh.
So this one I have.
That's like 2 sentences.
I think it's 1 sentence, in fact.
Oh.
So I have this one earmarked. So I was just flipping to my earmarked pages to read. And this one just says, it's helpful to work as if the project you're engaged in is bigger than you. And that was a quote that I read and went, oh, that is good. We should keep that in mind.
Yeah.
A quote from Anthony D. Saint, a name I'm not going to try and pronounce. Perfection is finally obtained, not when there is no longer anything to add, but when there's no longer anything to take away. I'm talking about the need to take away things that aren't necessary in your piece of art or creation or whatever it is, because we're so often hesitant to do that.
Yeah.
We just want to be like, well, I need to add something to make it better. Sometimes you need to take things away to make it better.
Yeah. And sometimes you just need to let it sit and come back to it.
Yes.
Because it might not be as bad as you think it is.
Yes. And some of these things, like he talks about all of like this, the different topics he has in this book range from like what works for you, context, completion, openness, apocrypha, points of view, harmony, what we tell ourselves, things like that. And also what it looks like to be like, why are you creating? What is your reason? And if you're not paying attention to that reason, stop. Just stop doing it because you're doing it for a different reason right now.
It sounds a lot like there's a Facebook group that I'm a part of that the person who runs it's name is Mike Brennan, and he has a podcast called Creative Chats.
Mm-hmm.
And his whole thing is that he wants to be creative daily. And so he talks a lot about what you were just talking about. Yes.
All right, let's get into our podcast read.
This is not Celeste and Squid chat.
Kind of is.
Kind of is. Okay. So today we are allegedly reading The Princess Bride by William Goldman. And for those of you who don't know, the movie is in fact based on a book. Yes. And the book is supposed to be the abridged version because it was supposed to be, supposedly there is a historical book about Florin somewhere floating out there. And this is the good parts version.
I'm going to withhold my thoughts until you finish what we're reading.
Oh, no. Okay. So let me read the description just in case you've been living under a rock and don't know what The Princess Bride is. So, what happens when the most beautiful girl in the world marries the most handsome prince of all time and he turns out to be, well, a lot less than the man of her dreams? As a boy, William Goldman claims he loved to hear his father read the S. Morgenstern classic, The Princess Bride. But as a grown-up, he discovered that the boring parts were left out of good old Dad's recitation, and only the good parts reached his ears. Now Goldman does Dad one better. He's reconstructed the good parts version to delight wise kids and wide-eyed grown-ups everywhere. What's it about? Fencing, fighting, true love, strong hate, harsh revenge, a few giants, lots of bad men, lots of good men, 5 or 6 beautiful women, BC's monstrous and gentle, some swell escapes, captures, death, lies, true miracles, and a little bit of PG-13 material. Cutting off that last bit because I'm like, I didn't know that was in the description. So, Squid, what did you think?
Oh, well, when you were saying the initial description of this book, I like to submit that I have seen The Princess Bride.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I did not see it until I was in my later teen years.
Same.
My mother was not familiar with The Princess Bride until I was in my later teen years. So we saw it together for the first time.
Okay.
Experienced it. And then I was like, this is a great movie. This is so funny. I didn't realize it was a book until you said we were reading The Princess Bride. Because I was like, what I imagine is many people just thought it was a movie.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
I started reading this book and then wasn't sure if I was being gaslit by the author or not.
Oh, no.
So I have the 30th anniversary edition. So I have an introduction to the 30th anniversary edition.
Mm-hmm.
And then an introduction to the 25th, I think. Yes, an introduction to the 25th. And then I believe there's another introduction. Hang on, let me look.
That's a lot of introductions.
Now, for those that have not read this book, for those that are not familiar in this book, everything within the cover and the back cover are work of fiction. Everything in this, false.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. I don't know how much of this man's life actually informed his book writing. Masterfully done. Masterfully. I'm going to say that up front. Read this book. I don't say that often.
I feel justified.
Go read this book.
I got a book that Squid likes.
Listen. There were several points throughout reading this book.
So good.
Where I went, this is how you write comedy.
Oh, so funny.
This is how you do it. Because I've read some books that are supposed to be comedy that are not.
And the thing about it is it's legitimately a good, like, adventure story.
Yeah.
But
it's so
hysterical.
But I found some of the funniest parts of this book. Okay, so let us preface this by saying, if you were like me and you didn't know The Princess Bride was a book, we're going to spoil things, but not really. Because if you've watched the movie, you know what happens in the book.
Yeah.
The movie is the most one-for-one interpretation of a book I've ever seen in my life. This
book is why I get so angry at book adaptation movies, because I'm going, it's been done.
Yes.
In America, we have done it. And
we have the capability.
We have the capabilities. This is just lazy. Like,
yes. So, like, I was amazed while reading this book how much of the dialogue in the movie was just one for one.
Oh my God. I think that there's very few. The biggest changes that I can remember are that it's not the shrieking eels. The zoo would have been a good addition. It's not the shrieking eels.
The zoo would be hard to do, so I understand. But
it would. The shrieking eels are sharks in the book.
Which, again, such a minimal change.
I mean, but then, and this one's always kind of bothered me a little bit, simply because it makes you go, oh, about Wesley so much more, is that in the movie, he's just like climbing using his spidey powers, I guess. I don't know how he's climbing up the cliffs of insanity. And in the book, he's punching into the rock.
I will submit that made a lot of sense to me while I was
punching
reading.
Into the rock?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you rock climb and you are climbing a crack, what you will do is make a fist and put it into the crack and then turn it sideways.
That's an actual thing?
Yeah. So you will like put a hand in and make a fist, because if you turn it, it will keep you in place. Or if you like put a hand in and then crunch your fingers, it keeps it in a crack. So to that, like, if you don't know what someone's doing when they're rock climbing, it will look like they're punching rock, but really they're just climbing a crack and they're punching into the rock, but using a crack to do it. Yeah. So that made sense to me.
We need a mind blown sound in the background of that, because, like, I didn't know that was an actual thing. I didn't know.
So that's why if you're like crack climbing, you will tape fingers because it will scrape your knuckles.
I'm not outdoorsy.
Yes. This is a time in which I knew things. I used to rock climb a lot. So
I rock climbed as a teenager, and it was a wall. It was a rock wall. It wasn't a let me go, because it's pretty flat down here. Mm-hmm. So like going
even indoor rock climbing, because that's what I used to do, was indoor rock climbing. But they would, people that actually rock climb usually design those things. So they'll make routes that you can actually do crack climbing with, which is either body weight, where you'll like leverage your body against a crack to pull against it, or you will use a fist that you'll like open up in a crack to keep you in place. So when I was reading this, I was like, yeah, this man's climbing the crack right now. Let's go. So even the movie adaptation was like, yeah, he's just rock climbing.
That actually makes me less upset that they changed it, because they really didn't. They just changed.
He's just the rock face is different in the movie.
Like, I'm thinking he's like just
punching into the rock,
punching it.
Yeah.
And okay, that makes more sense.
Yes. Because when I read that, that's what I thought, was like, oh, he's climbing the crack, where he's just putting his fist into a crack and using that. Yeah.
Not what I pictured, but okay, cool. That's an actual thing.
Welcome to Rock Climbing with Reread Allegedly.
Where we allegedly don't rock climb?
Where we sometimes go outside. I was making a point before all this happened. And
I'm sorry. I
don't remember what it was.
The adaptation. You were talking about the adaptation.
Oh, no, I was talking about being gaslit by this book.
Oh! Way back. This is what happens when John's on
So
here.
I was just prefacing to make sure that we're not really spoiling anything.
Yes.
When we talk about this book, if you have seen the movie. If you haven't seen the movie, what are you doing with your life?
Go watch it.
Go watch the movie. And then go read the book. The book adds so many wonderful things. But the parts that I found the funniest about this book were just the author's additions about his life. Not even about the book, but just his life. I'm going to see if I can find it, because I cannot express to you how hard I laughed when this man was talking about his son just being a fat little child.
It's terrible. Like, if that's actually his child, William Goldman was a horrible father. But
absolutely.
But it's so funny to read.
And truly, this man talks about his child just being this fat little boy that can't run, he can't do anything.
Me too, kid.
And his wife is just mean all the time. And I got like probably 100 pages in, maybe. No, not even. I probably got 50 pages in, and I was like, is anything true? I don't know. I don't know what I'm reading, and I don't know what to believe.
The part where, like, he does it so masterfully that it just is seamless. It feels like this is actually, he's taken a book. There's a note in there where he is talking about the fact that his editor is complaining about Morgenstern's asides. Because like it's before America, but after democracy. And because they're trying to give you a
not ashamed to admit that at one point I Googled Florin to make sure it wasn't a real place.
I did too as a teenager.
Because again, I've only seen the movie. And up to this point, I've probably seen the movie 2 or 3 times in my life.
Oh, no.
So, like, I can quote a lot of it because it's very memorable, but I didn't see it until later in life. So I've seen it a handful of times.
That is one of my, not one of my favorites. That is my favorite movie. That is the movie that I will watch no matter what. And like, I was an older teenager. I say older. I was probably 15, 16 when I first saw it, because it was around the time that my mom and dad met and got married. But it was one of those that the youth group I was in, that was their go-to when they wanted us to go to sleep. And I never went to sleep.
No, I can't imagine going to sleep during it.
Because there's some of the humor is more subtle. And so they would wait until like 1, 2 a.m. for lock-ins. And then would be like, hey, here's a movie. And expect us all to just crash. And my ADHD insomnia brain was like, this is great. And was just awake. So I've watched it. At one point, I probably couldn't do it anymore. But at one point in time, I was watching the movie with a friend. I walked out of the room and I started quoting the movie with the movie. And my friend goes, this is weird. And so she paused it and she goes, okay, who's on screen right now? And I told her. And she goes, what are they wearing? And I told her. So this is the level of love I had for the movie. I don't know the book that well. Just because I've only read it maybe 4 or 5 times over. Let's see, I discovered there was a book when I was in college. I'm 35 now. I was 19 then.
Math.
It's 4 or 5 times over a lot of time. So, and I don't have a great memory.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember everything, but I remember it's hysterical.
And it's one of the movies too, where like, again, I've only probably seen it 3 times. Which feels like a lot for when I first saw it to now.
Yeah.
I could probably quote a lot of it because it is such a quotable movie.
There's so many good lines from the movie.
Such a quotable
book. It makes so much better.
Yes. And like even the changes that they make to the movie is one of the few times I'm not mad at the changes they make because I understand it just makes it easier to make a movie.
Right.
Because like removing the zoo. While the zoo is fun in this book, it'd be really hard to do in a movie.
It really would. And
put the tree in. That's fine.
Yeah. It's good. And for all we know, there could have been scenes of the zoo that they cut. Because you just go from the tree to so you don't know.
Yeah.
And then the taking out the backstory for Fezzik and Inigo. Yes. It just added so much more for me to understand where they were coming from.
Right. Because it doesn't remove anything from the movie. You still appreciate both of the characters, but reading it, you're like, oh no, Fezzik. Oh, Inigo. I know why you want to kill these people, and I know why you're sad now.
It made the scene where he killed the guy so much more emotional.
Yep.
Knowing the backstory.
So, and this book is so good. This book is so good. It's not often that I say that, listeners.
No.
Cherish it.
You only hear her talk about books once a month. We talk about books regularly together, and she does not say that very often. And generally, if she does, it's about a sad book.
I don't know if you have the 35th. You don't have the 35th anniversary.
I think I do, but it's
30th anniversary.
It's a decorative version. It's really big and like gold gilded pages, and we got Chris Sarandon, who played Humperdinck, to sign it. And our goal is to eventually get all of the living cast members to sign the book.
Can you read the 30th anniversary introduction?
I actually, because I have set my book down somewhere and I'm not sure where it is.
It's somewhere in the house.
It's in the house, I think. Either that or it's in my lunchbox. Because I read on my lunch break. But I borrowed it from the library on ebook because I was like, I'm going to try to finish this. And then I didn't have a chance to read an ebook today at work because we were too busy. And so I didn't have time to like sit and read my phone. So I have access to that version currently. It goes back in like 2 weeks. So I can go back and read the intro, read the extra stuff.
It's just, it adds to the gaslighting a little bit.
Okay.
Because this man, again, this is one of the most effortlessly funny books I've ever read. And both introductions, the 30th and the 25th, talk about the making of the movie.
Yes.
So they attach the movie to this book because this man was involved. So I was just
that explains a lot, actually.
What is happening? I don't understand. Is anything real? Does this man exist? Does he have a child? What's going on? I spent so much time being confused.
Oh no.
And some of the best some of the best parts of this book are the parts where
you're confused.
Yes, well, where William Goldman puts author notes into the middle of this fake book that he is abridged.
Yes.
This book is not real. There is no unabridged version of The Princess Bride out there.
That we know of.
I want to put that out there for people that have not read the book like me. No. It doesn't exist. This man made an abridged version of a fake book. And then he put his notes into the middle of his abridged version to make it seem like he was researching an unabridged version. And he will gaslight you until you are not sure what's real. And it will be so funny and so concerning.
I'm laughing, and I'm very sad that you felt like you were being lied to and gaslit, but it's so funny because it's just so funny done that you're like, is this a place? Is
so
Florin
funny
real? I actually, when I first read it, thought that maybe Florin was based on something.
Yeah,
like there was
like,
a country
Florence?
Right? Like, is this a country that we have somewhere and we're just changing names? Because, like, obviously the story is fake, but so many details about Florin and Gilder and all of the other things. The fact that Wesley went to Carolina in the book, like that's where he was going to his fortune. I'm like, okay, he went to America because it was after America, but before taxes. I don't know. I don't remember what he said in that book, that part.
I love anytime he's like, this was before doctors, but after taxes.
Yes.
This was after doctors, but before doctors actually treated illnesses that had to do with vitamin D, because that has to do with milk. So milkmen dealt with that. And I was like, I don't know what's happening, but I believe you 100%.
It's just, again, it's just, if you come at it with, this is meant to be fun, then it's a fun book. Like, it's just fun. I love it so much. That's my stance on it.
If you want to read a funny book, and this is one of the things too, where like comedy is hard to do.
Yeah.
Comedy is especially hard to do in static writing.
Yeah.
When you are like on stage, if you are a stand-up comedian, you have a rapport with your audience.
Mm-hmm.
And you can like feed off of them and give back to whatever's happening. When you are writing a book that is funny, so difficult. So difficult.
And it's almost like Goldman was feeding off himself.
Yes. Which is kind of what you need as a comedy writer.
I mean, yeah. It's kind of a dry humor.
Yes.
So
and
if
he does it in such an upfront way.
Yeah.
It's so like satirical and dry that you just find yourself laughing at stuff where you're like, is he serious? He's not, right? I hope he's not.
What's happening here?
I can't. It's what I want. John's not here, so I can say this. But like John dies at the end. Wants to be a funny book. And I can say that because John's not here.
Oh, he's going to be so sad when he listens to the podcast. What makes me sad about that is, sorry, I'm interrupting you. But
no,
what
it's
makes
fine. That was my whole sentence. So.
That was your whole thought. What makes me sad about that is that they have abridged the abridging for the audiobook. And so there
of
is
of Princess Bride?
Yes. The audiobook is like 3 hours, and I listened to an hour and a half of it, and I got angry because they skip the intro. Like the first intro where he's talking about his son, skip straight into the story and cut out 9/10 of the first chapter.
This is not a big book.
No, it's not. And I don't understand why they have not produced a unabridged version of the audiobook, an unabridged version of the abridged version. Like why they have not done this. So poor John has probably listened to this book and will have the zoo is not in the book. They completely, all the references to the zoo, it's like they took the script from the movie and pared that down. And it's just close enough to the book that you can do it. And then Rob Reiner is the one who read it because he's the one who produced the movie. And so I get that.
Like I will say that I don't really think you lose too much. And that's not me saying you shouldn't read the actual book, but that's me saying that like the movie does a really good job. So if you are only getting what the movie content has, you're doing fine.
Still good. But
the book is not that much bigger. Read it. It's small. It's tiny. Get it.
For our purposes of doing this, it occurred to me that most of what you and I were probably going to talk about, John was not going to have the experience of. And that makes me so sad and angry.
Because it's the funniest parts of the book.
Right.
Again, just so... And I cannot stress this enough. As someone that has tried to write comedies and humor short stories, it is hard. It is very, very hard to write static humor pieces.
I can imagine.
Because you have to be funny in a way that appeals to a lot of people and you don't know who the people are.
Yeah.
So like the fact that this book it feels effortlessly funny. And that is so impressive because you know so much effort went into this.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so much.
What in the world was going on in William Goldman's mind?
Nothing good. Based on the parts that he interjects of his life, nothing good.
Like, and the thing is that some of the book is real.
Yes. I never actually looked into his life because I didn't want to know if he had a really fat child and he divorced his wife. But
I don't know if he had a psychologist's wife and a very fat child, but he was the writer on The Stepford Wives.
Oh,
which
wonderful.
Is the movie.
That'll mess anyone up.
Which is what the movie he talks about being in Hollywood for his very fat son's birthday. So
again, so
this
funny.
Poor kid,
just this effortlessly funny. I hope this child is not real. If it is, I'm very sorry, and I hope you got really good counseling
from your mother
because you needed it. If this was your father and he wrote about you this way, and he laughed about what it looked like when you ran, I'm very sorry. It's terrible.
So
terrible.
Oh
anyway,
my god.
Do you have any spiritual takeaways from us? What did you learn about God in this story?
So there's a section in the book when they're torturing Wesley before the machine is ready, where he talks about how that he knows that Buttercup left him in the fire swamp because she loves him. Now, Buttercup is a moron. Like, this is probably not what Buttercup was initially thinking. It might have been her motivation, but I don't think she had the self-awareness to go, yeah, this is what's going on. But just the utter love that Wesley had for Buttercup who has done nothing to deserve it, made me think about Christ's love for us, because we are idiots.
Yeah.
Like, we are sinful, terrible idiots, and Christ loves us anyway, and he sacrificed for us anyway, and he knows that if we come to him, that he will be able to love us even more so. And it's just, I don't know, the correlation between the two when I was reading it really struck me.
I have two, the first of which really pairs with yours.
Oh.
Which is one of the interjections from William Goldman when he talks about his father reading this story to him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's around the time when his father says, Wesley dies. And he's like, what do you mean Wesley dies? Yeah, Prince Humperdinck kills him. And he's like, well, who kills Prince Humperdinck? He goes, well, no one does. And William Goldman, as a son, a fake lying son, because this isn't a real story that I was gaslit into believing. Anyway, he goes, well, what did you read the story to me for, Dad? Like, why would I want to hear this? And he warns this until his dad comes back and says, are you ready to listen to the rest of the story? Which kind of goes with that of being like, we don't always know the bigger picture. And we have a tendency to get mad about it and be like, well, why would you tell me that this is how it's supposed to go? Because I know how it should be in my infinite human wisdom against God. Like, I know what should be happening. And then Dad comes back and says, are you ready to listen to the rest of it now? Because I can tell you how it's going to go.
Oh, that's
And
good.
you go, yeah, all right, go ahead. I'm done ranting now, and you're ready to tell me the story because you're patient and loving and kind, and I'm a tantruming child.
But I'm ready to listen.
I'm ready to listen now. The second one I had, which is a bit more of a stretch, but when I read this book, I was like, oh, there's so many takeaways you could get from this book. And I want to find one that's no one else is going to pick. Because I want to have something to say at the end of the podcast. So this one's a bit of a stretch. So just bear with me. All right. So if we're accepting the fact that there is an unabridged version of The Princess Bride out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that William Goldman has gone through all of the work to abridge this for us. And he tells us many times, much like this quote, Morgenstern's The Princess Bride is a 1,000-page manuscript. I got it down to 300. But I didn't just cut out his satirical interludes. I made allusions constantly. And there was all kinds of stuff, some of it wonderful, I got rid of. Example, Wesley's terrible childhood and how he came to be the farm boy. Example, how the king and queen went to Miracle Max because they knew they had somehow given birth to a monster, Humperdinck. And could Max change that? Max's failure is what led to his firing, which in turn caused his crisis in confidence. His wife, Valerie, refers to it when she says to Inigo, he is afraid, he's done, that the miracles are gone from his once majestic fingers. Page 316 in this version. I felt all of this, exciting and moving as a lot of it is, to be off the spine of the story. I went with true love and high adventure, and I think I was right to do that. And I think the result have proved that. Morgenstern never had any audience for his book. Except in Florin, of course. I brought it to people everywhere, and, with the movie, to a wider audience still. So, sure, I abridged it. But, I'm sorry, I shaped it. I also brought life to it. I don't know what you want to call that, but whatever I did is sure something. And that is the premise of, like, all of his little notes about what he's taken out, because he often talks about taking out boring bits, taking out sad bits, but he doesn't take out all of the sad bits.
Right.
There are still horrible things that happen in this book. So if we think of, again, a stretch, I am not likening William Goldman to Jesus. But if we think of Jesus as our intermediary, and we think of William Goldman as the intermediary between the unabridged version and this, Jesus is standing between us and some bad things. Not all of the bad things. Bad things still happen in our life. All the time. We still have to deal with sin and the world and what we're in, but there is still someone standing there between us saying, but look at what you could have if I wasn't here providing this for you. So that was my spiritual takeaway of being like, thank God we have Jesus.
Yeah.
Being there, protecting us from the unabridged version of life.
Who, unlike William Goldman, is holy and pure and all of the things.
Doesn't make fun of you if you're fat.
Right.
Thank God.
Or say terrible things about his spouse.
Like, yeah. But just the idea of like, we have someone that stands there between us and bad things. And not all the bad things, because we do experience struggle.
Right.
And, you know, terrible things and sadness and periods of depression. But even if we are experiencing those, he's experiencing them with us. And he's still there. And he is still taking much of that burden onto himself. So that we can, at the end, have a wonderful story to tell and be closer to him. That was my takeaway that hopefully was different than what anyone else came up with.
I like it.
Not that William is Jesus.
No, God, no. He's terrible individual, but he's funny.
He might be a wonderful person. I don't know.
I mean,
but
the way
he is funny.
The way he talked about his wife is probably the only thing that really bothered me.
Yes.
About the book.
But she may not even be real. We don't know.
He may have been a single man. And some of that is just stems from the fact that I dislike when spouses or people who are together talk badly about the other in front of people, because I feel like that's disrespectful. I feel like that's rude. Even if it's in jest, I feel like it's inappropriate.
Yeah,
and
I do agree with you. I don't agree with doing that.
Oh, okay. I was like, well, I mean, we're okay. We can disagree.
I mean, you can disagree with that.
It's fine. I'm not going to say anything. Some of the people I love the most don't agree with me on that stance. But so for me, that was probably the only bad thing.
Which, again, I feel like most of this is so satirical and humor-based that it's probably not true. And I feel like he probably has a wonderful marriage. Or isn't married at all. I don't know. Okay. No idea.
So, okay. Well, I think we're done, because we could probably rave about this book all night. Okay, guys. Well, as always, you can find us on the We Read Allegedly. You can find us on Geek Devotions. We are in the Geek Devotions Discord if you want to talk to us personally. And we are also
at me. I don't check anything.
Unless you tag her, she's not gonna see it. Or tag me and I will tag her. Yes. Because I've done that before. So we like to talk to you. We just don't always check our phones. So, we're hoping that by next month, John has internet again. That'd be nice.
He's got it because it's his book next.
Yeah. And he needs to be here for that.
Because I won't talk about it nicely if he's not.
Will you talk about it nicely if he is there?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Okay.
Well, with all that being said, so long, and thanks for all the fish.
Bye.
Bye.
We Read Allegedly is part of the Geek Devotion Network, where we're devoted to letting you know that you're loved. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts or at wereadallegedly.com. This month, we read The Princess Bride. Next month, we'll be talking about Musashi. We release episodes every first Saturday, and you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. I said that already, but that's fine. I'll edit it out. Look forward to seeing you then. Bye. My description's much different. Why are you wet?
Well,
sorry.
Solomon?
Yeah.
Or JM?
Solomon, his tail's wet. What the heck?